There is an old saying, and you guys know how much Casey likes his old sayings. I believe this quote should be credited to Bill Shakespeare. It was included in his classically written play Hamlet. You know, before there was Martin Scorsese, before there was Steven Spielberg, or if you're a super nerd like the Star Trek virgin Mike Freeman, before there was George Lucas, the only person the world could rely on for quality entertainment was Bill Shakespeare. Now, most people at the time called him William, but close friends they preferred to call him Bill or maybe even Billy. There is a line in Hamlet that says, "Methinks thou doth protest too much." Brilliant, brilliant quote. Have you ever been around someone who constantly talks about money? Every time you're around them, money consumes the entire conversation. He talks about how much money he has. He rides around in his rented Mercedes. He flaunts his so-called wealth at the bar by ordering top shelf liquor and buying shots for everyone else. He's always talking about planning these extravagant vacations to places like Dubai or Bora Bora. Now, of course, he never gets past the planning stage because in reality, he's broke. The only place he can afford to vacation to is the woke beach, where the tuck-friendly bathing suits are plentiful and the cucumbers are perfectly tanned. His constant talk of money, it's a defense mechanism. He talks himself up because he's insecure with his financial status. Pride and insecurity can make men do crazy things. Oftentimes, when we are insecure, we feel this constant need to defend ourselves. We're always on the defensive. We think someone's always trying to attack us. We were given a good example of what insecurity and paranoia can do to a man earlier this morning on First Take. And believe it or not, this doesn't involve Stephen A. Smith or Shannon Sharpe. Hey, it's me, Shay Shay. Shay and A, they have no reason to be insecure. First Take is performing very good in the ratings. Shay seems like a new man since he divorced Skip Bayless and entered into brotherly love with Stephen A. The example that I'm talking about, it actually involves Pat McAfee. Now, we haven't talked about Pat McAfee in a while here on the channel. There's really been no reason to because nothing has changed. When ESPN signed Pat McAfee and promised him almost $100 million, I think their intention was to have Patty eventually be the replacement for Stephen A. Smith. Now, as longtime viewers of this channel know, I think Stephen A. Smith is on his way out at ESPN. He has been very vocal about wanting to broaden his platform beyond just talking about sports. In terms of sports media, Stephen A. Smith, he's been sitting on top for almost a decade now. Maybe he needs a new challenge, needs something else to work towards. ESPN thought Pat McAfee would be the perfect replacement for Stephen A. Smith. He appeals to a younger audience. He's got over 2 million subscribers here on YouTube. But just like I told you guys months ago when they announced that Pat McAfee would be joining ESPN, this deal wasn't going to work out because Pat McAfee doesn't fit the culture of the network. The ESPN audience, they don't relate to Pat McAfee. Over the last couple of months, we have been seeing signs of insecurity in Pat McAfee. We saw the latest example of it this morning on First Take. But before I show you guys this clip, let's go ahead and get to the sponsor for today's video. My friends over at All Strokes Matter. All Strokes Matter. They should hire me to write their theme song. But a while back, I had a woman reach out to me asking where she could buy her husband clothes that were made by Americans for Americans. She didn't want to support woke clothing brands anymore, but she wanted high quality clothing for her husband. Now, obviously, I don't know shit about fashion, but I do happen to know the best brand of American made clothes, my friends over at All Strokes Matter. For all my golfers out there, All Strokes Matter, they just released this new line of polo style shirts. Now, of course, my personal favorites are the long sleeve tees. For all my ladies out there, All Strokes Matter, they also offer unisex jackets and hoodies that will keep you warm throughout the winter. All Strokes Matter has plenty of options if you're looking for ideas for the men in your family for Christmas. And you know, if you can't decide what they would like, just buy them a gift card. Let them decide for themselves. Unlike the organization Black Lives Matter, All Strokes Matter, they actually care about our country. These are American employees making American clothes with American materials for American men and women. Yes, their prices are a bit higher than clothes made in foreign sweatshops, but You know, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that you want to support American brands, American companies, then complain about American prices. So click the link in the description below. Use my promo code BTLFans30. That's BTLFANS30. Receive 30% off your first purchase of $25 or more with All Strokes Matter. All right, Pat McAfee, he was the special guest this morning on First Take. I don't really know why. I guess he was repaying the favor since Stephen A. appeared on his show yesterday. But within seconds of him being introduced, Pat McAfee goes off on this weird tangent. He starts off with an attempt at self-deprecating humor by calling himself an asshole. He follows that up by attacking fans of the Georgia Bulldogs because they didn't show me no love when I was there for college game day. That's interesting. I know who else doesn't show Pat McAfee love on college game day. The audience. A couple of months ago, The Athletic conducted a poll. An overwhelming majority of the ESPN audience, they want Pat McAfee's ass off college game day. But things got even weirder when Pat McAfee addressed a narrative that's more than 6 months old. A narrative that supposedly didn't bother him when he signed with ESPN, but for someone who isn't bothered by it, he sure seems to constantly bring it up. Watch for yourself.
And we're using the stick mic?
Yeah, well, the thing about it is when you wear tank tops like an asshole, it's hard to put lav mics on, especially when you wear 2 chains. So it's been quite a task for the people here at Seaport. It has been an honor to be in the same building that you guys are in. And also, you guys should see this set. It is gorgeous. Stephen A. deserves it, obviously. Oh, the temperature is perfect. And Unk is about 3 times bigger than you think he is. This dude is an absolute beast. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for the hospitality. And the Georgia fans,
they loved you.
Well, there was a whole...
until you said Alabama.
They did not love me. You got to remember, the whole narrative all year was that because my show came to ESPN, obviously we fired Steve Young. We fired all the people that were here and were great people at ESPN. It was my show's fault. And then on game day, David Pollock got let go. David Pollock, who I am a massive fan of, one of the greatest Bulldogs of all time, a dude who was very good to me. Obviously, I took his spot. So Georgia fans all year, not necessarily the biggest McAfee fans. Now, with that being said, I was very nice to them. I was very cordial to them. But in the biggest moment in front of them all, it was a nice little reminder that, hey, yeah, you can go to hell too for what you said to me all year.
First of all, let me just go ahead and get this out of the way. Blaming Pat McAfee for the layoffs at ESPN, that is absolutely ridiculous. It is not his fault that ESPN laid off dozens of their on-air talent to make room in the budget for Pat McAfee. Hell, some of the talent they laid off needed to be fired. Who wanted to listen to another sermon from Father Jalen Rose, former lead pastor at Woke United Methodist? Who wanted to sit through another painfully boring sermon on the dangers of Mount Rushmore? If any of us were in Pat McAfee's position, we would have done the exact same thing that he did. If a company is offering you millions of dollars, are you going to ask them, is this going to cause other people to lose their jobs? No. The only thing you're going to ask, can I borrow your pen to sign this contract? Now, that being said, I don't understand why this narrative is still bothering Pat McAfee. I don't understand why it bothered him to begin with. Like I said, this narrative, it was being pushed by ESPN's audience months ago. No one has brought this up in the last few months besides Pat McAfee. Why does he keep bringing it up? I'm not a trained psychologist, but from the outside looking in, it seems like Pat McAfee's insecure. Whether he is insecure with his position at ESPN or he's insecure with his performance at the network, maybe it's a combination of both. Either way, it's an insecurity. And look, that is not a knock against Pat McAfee. If I were in his position, I would be insecure too. He's got to be under a lot of pressure. This was one of the problems that we talked about when Pat McAfee signed with ESPN. This dude had it made. Low pressure job, millions of views and subscribers on YouTube. You're making millions of dollars without having to deal with the constraints of corporate media. More importantly, you're not dealing with the expectations on corporate media. You trade all that in for $17 million a year from ESPN. Now, according to Pat McAfee himself, the deal with ESPN, it was not about the money, and I believe him. If I had to guess, he was probably making close to the same money here on YouTube. He signed with ESPN hoping to reach a wider audience. ESPN, they had the same goal. They were hoping Pat McAfee would bring his audience to television, and Pat McAfee, he was hoping to grow his audience by using ESPN's platform. The problem is, it ain't working out that way. Ratings for the Pat McAfee Show on ESPN, they have been laying in the pooper since his debut. Unless something drastically changes, this is what Pat McAfee is going to average. It's been 4 months now. His ratings have remained mostly unchanged. During the month of November, Pat McAfee averaged 308,000 viewers. Woohoo! Yes, yes, yes. I'm sure towards the end of the year, ESPN will send out a nice press release touting the success of the Pat McAfee Show. Pat McAfee sets new records for ESPN on YouTube. Yeah, I would imagine so. Before Pat McAfee, ESPN was featuring Bomani Jones on their YouTube channel. The Bobo, he couldn't attract starving birds to his man seeds. ESPN could put a compilation of classic matches featuring Doink the Clown on their YouTube channel, and it would perform better than Bomani Jones. ESPN did not hire Pat McAfee to draw on YouTube. They hired him to draw on television. And it's just not working. There's just no other way to say it. This deal with ESPN has backfired on Pat McAfee, and I think this is another reason he's so insecure about it. He pissed off his audience because a lot of them felt like Pat McAfee sold out when he signed with ESPN. Pissed off ESPN's audience of shitfucks because the network fired their objects of worship to make room in the budget for Pat McAfee. People watching ESPN, they weren't watching Pat McAfee. Earlier this morning, we talked about the ratings in women's college basketball. Their ratings for the regular season better than Pat McAfee. He is being outdrawn by the 1 a.m. edition of SportsCenter. He's being beaten by something called Monday Blitz. Get Up with Mike Greenberg. Hell, Pat McAfee is being beaten in the ratings by every fucking show on the network. Something called Formula One Surround, which I would assume is about Formula One racing. I would also assume it's a painfully boring show. That show is beating Pat McAfee. Maybe things will get better. Maybe Pat McAfee will find a way to resonate with ESPN's audience. But if he doesn't, where do you go from here? I know he's only 4 months into this multi-year contract, but if Pat McAfee keeps struggling, what does ESPN do about it? Even his shows with Aaron Rodgers, they are failing to make an impact, which is understandable since ESPN's audience thinks that Aaron Rodgers is the anti-Fauci. According to Pat McAfee, though, Aaron Rodgers, he's the main reason for his show's mainstream success. I don't know how this ends, but I don't think it's going to end well. But give me your thoughts on it. Pat McAfee goes on a weird, unhinged rant on First Take. He addresses rumors and blame from months ago that no one is talking about anymore. Is Pat McAfee insecure with his role at ESPN? Am I reading too much into his ratings? Do ratings really matter? I think they do. What about you? Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. I appreciate each one of you guys and your continued support. Thank you for all your nominations that you have sent on the Hef Awards earlier today. If you want to send a nomination, shoot me an email, btlkc84@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at kc_btl84, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.